is Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. Is it still relevant in 2023? Hey guys, Nomadic Chad here. This is Revenue Operations in 10 Minutes, the podcast for six-figure earners who want to transition to seven figures and dump their 95 permanently. So I've jumped back into Tim Ferriss's work a bunch lately, and strangely enough, the two influences that I didn't expect to push me there the hardest were Nomad Capitalist, which is fantastic if you want to talk taxes, sovereignty, structuring your business so it makes the most sense internationally, and then Tai Lopez, who was I guess you could say talking making fun of his marketing shtick. You know, the funniest thing about the 4-Hour Workweek, if you've ever read it, is people will say, well, you can't actually just work 4 hours a week, but they're kind of missing the point. Like, really, Tim Ferriss's work, or the 4-Hour Workweek specifically, is about Pareto's 80-20. That subject in and of itself has been beat to death. So I'm not trying to go back into the 80-20. Now, what I do think is super interesting in rereading the 4-Hour Workweek. One, it was written in 2007. He revised it in 2009, which is essentially the same thing, but now you had 2 years of success stories, etc. And then he has if you go find his podcast, he has a podcast called The 4-Hour Workweek Revisited, where one of his friends interviews him, and he talks about what he would or wouldn't change. So go look for that on Tim Ferriss's blog. 4-Hour blog is it's a mouthful to say his name, which is a funny lesson about how to choose your names that we'll talk about later. Clearly that worked out really well for him. So the thing is, remember now, it was written in 2007. So first off, does it still apply to 2023? The answer is yes. I'm not trying to bury the lead here, but there's a very important reason why I would recommend it as recommended reading. So first off, you have to know that now we're in 2023. It has passed the test of time. So what are some amazing books that have passed the test of time? Well, one is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. For sure has passed the test of time. Books like Good to Great or The Tipping Point, for sure, have passed the test of time. So as much as I hated to admit it, the 4-Hour Workweek has passed the test of time. And one of the reasons it's so valuable still, in my opinion, is because you're looking at pre-social media business advice. And that's so clutch. Like, really think about what that means. Now, when you start a business, and when I work with other entrepreneurs, I still tell them this: okay, you got a great business idea, you have the premise, you have your hook worked out. That's wonderful. Now, is the Instagram name available? First off, the URL, but is the Instagram name available, the Facebook name, and the Twitter name? You know, get all three of them right now. Lock them in. I don't even care. I'm not even using Twitter anymore on Nomadic Chad. We'll talk about that in another podcast. And I've since dumped all my money into the same Twitter advertisement I was running that Twitter got rid of. I dumped it into YouTube, and I consolidated all my efforts into YouTube. We'll talk about that in another podcast. But Tim Ferriss talks about things like calling up an advertising rep and saying, hey John, we'll call him John, I was really hoping I could get 30% off as a first-time advertiser. I've got this check just about to drop it into FedEx. Can I send that to you? So he's creating a sense of urgency by using the postal system or FedEx or UPS. So that wouldn't work as much anymore, because now all advertising is you're gonna swipe this online. The YouTube ad campaign I set up just now, it's like instantaneously. Also, Tim Ferriss talks about some things like going into trade magazines and seeing who's repeat advertisers, so you know what's working, what's profitable, because if they continue to advertise month over month, it's profitable. You might have a little niche there. So those sound like old school things, don't they? Isn't that funny that 2007 is, like, we could call that old school now? However, the principles, if you really pay attention to the principles of pay-per-click advertising, if you really pay attention to the principles of direct marketing, those principles are sound, and it's those principles that you want to hang on to. Another point on this is I was listening to a guy who's in the dating coach niche. And he was saying that, oh, I'm never doing direct marketing again because I felt icky and it felt like it sucked away the soul of my product. Well, that was direct response marketing in the context of aggressive funnels, and also in the context of social media, where it's like constant click, 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 click. But when you do direct response marketing from the context of print media, that's just smart marketing, man. So direct response marketers were trying to say, how do I know that the $5 that I spent on marketing, on advertising, were coming back? Well, they did things like set up separate phone numbers, and they did things like set up specific URLs. So they would know that the $5,000 they spent on Men's Fitness, or the $5,000 they spent on the trade magazine, was exactly what drove that traffic. So if you can master these principles that Tim Ferriss is talking about in his book, they apply directly to your Facebook advertising. They apply directly to your Google AdWords, which now applies directly to your YouTube advertising, which, you know, if you're still going to use Twitter, would apply to your Twitter advertising too. So the number one reason I would absolutely recommend people go back into the 4-Hour Workweek, and why I would say it's absolutely relevant in 2023, is because the principles are time tested. Because you're looking at, one, he wrote it for a high-tech audience. He talks about writing it for two specific friends that were essentially male and tech savvy and tech oriented. So he wrote it for a high-tech audience. So already, like me being in the tech field, you guys, if you're drawn to this, you're probably similar to me and have a bit of tech understanding. He wrote it for a high-tech audience already, but he's talking about low-tech, really effective creating businesses. He calls it the Muse business, but creating business strategies. And that's what's way important, that we'll talk about in another podcast, the difference between strategies and tactics. But if you can grasp the strategies that he's talking about there, they apply tactically today. So it's hyper relevant today. In fact, I would say it's more relevant today than, like, I bought some other entrepreneurs' digital nomads manifesto, whatever. It's garbage, man. It's garbage because they want to put a bunch of Twitter tactics and all this other stuff, but it's missing a certain oomph that you only get when you're talking about strategies. Let's pan out here. Ooh, look at Biloxi. So that's it. It's 2023. His book is now 10, 18, 19, 20, 13, man, 16 years old. It'll hit 20 years here soon. Maybe we'll do something special for the 20 year. But I would encourage you to go back into that. I do like Perry Marshall's 80-20, but now in rereading Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek, I was like, man, there's a lot of very similar sounding stuff in here. And that's not a knock on Perry Marshall. Like, nobody can copyright the 80-20 principle, but Tim Ferriss covers it all in that one book. It was written in a sort of arrogant, flippant kind of tone that works very, very well, at least for my generation. And I still think that, well, 100% no, because I personally, even though I haven't read a lot of Ferriss's the book again, I have personally been using these tactics over the last 10 years to grow brands, create pages, bring thousands and hundreds of followers to whatever I wanted. So it works, but I love revisiting it for the low-tech side of the technically savvy point of it. So that's it. 2023 here. It is worth the reread. And I'd even go back. I hate that orange and red cover. Go back and find the white, blue, and green one. That's it. Nomadic Chad here, and I will see you in the next one.